You might find that it won't ever leave until you feel your feelings and don't ignore the pain. Release your feelings like the ones that you always refrain. Embrace your feelings, yeah, don't be ashamed.
Guys, welcome back to my channel where we discuss popular mainstream music. And in today's video, this is A-list pop stars versus B-list pop stars. Okay, A-list pop stars versus B-list pop stars. And we're gonna specifically looking at the 2010s era. Okay, so that era of pop stars. So I'm not gonna be mentioning the new ones like Billie and Olivia and Chappell and stuff like that. This is gonna be more of the 2010s era. And we're gonna be focusing on what is the difference between an A-list and a B-list pop star. Very interesting topic, but before we get into that, if you enjoyed the music in the beginning of this video, that is my music. Definitely check it out, guys. That's my new single. I'd really appreciate it. All you have to do is type my name, Sam Dolphin, and my music will pop up on the YouTube search bar. And you can also check out my music on music streaming platforms such as Spotify and Apple Music. So definitely check it out. I'd really appreciate it. So getting back into the video, okay, and this is A-list pop stars versus B-list pop stars. And the reason I wanted to do this video is because this has actually been a very interesting topic. A lot of commentators actually have been making this comment about an A-list tear versus a B-list tear. And sometimes you want your fave to be the ultimate, ultimate pop star, but sometimes they just fit more in the B range. And I think this is a beautiful concept to understand because it's okay to be in the B range. The B range is not a failure. It still means you're doing really well, which you'll see with a lot of these people in the B list. They are actually very successful as well too. But it puts a great perspective on hierarchy and levels. Some artists are A-list pop stars where they're really like the whole brand. They have these ginormous fan bases and they really set the tone for an era. They're like the forefront of the era. And some artists are more B-list pop stars where they're still very successful, but they might not be the top of the top. Okay, doesn't mean they're unsuccessful, doesn't even mean that they don't have #1 hit songs. They just might not be the forefront face of an era, but they still play a role. It's more of like a lead actor versus a supporting actor. That's kind of how I look at it. Still very important parts, but one is more of the lead and one represents more of a supporting role within the community. So very interesting. And we're going to be looking at the 2010s. Okay, so this is like with Gaga and all of them. So we're first going to start with the A-list pop stars of the 2010s. Okay, we're going to be focusing on female. So with the A-list, that would be Lady Gaga. Okay, that's going to be one of the first ones we're going to mention. Okay, Gaga was an A-list pop star for the 2010s because she set the tone for 2010s. She came out in the late 2000s, around 2008, 2009, and really went crazy with the Fame Monster and set the tone for 2010s pop because she changed how we look at it. So many artists started going crazy ham on their fashion. Everyone from Rihanna to Kesha to Katy Perry, because of how theatrical Lady Gaga was. She changed the tone for pop stars. First, it was just kind of look sexy, look gorgeous, look at the camera. And when Gaga came in, she totally went against just the whole, oh, I look like a standard sexy girl, and went more for a very creative, artistic look. And it made everyone from the 2010s very fashion orientated, very theatrical, and that all came from Lady Gaga. Her album sold amazing. It set the tone. She was really the lead female, the trailblazer for 2010s pop. You can't talk about 2010s pop without Lady Gaga. She was literally the forefront and the trailblazer who initiated it all. In her albums, The Fame Monster, Born This Way were epic albums. Epic albums. Really set the tone of 2010s, most anticipated. Really had a lot of hit songs from them. And also represented the music, where the musical direction was going, with the very techno type of pop, okay, that like boom boom boom, like techno, more electrical pop music, the direction that the music was going to as well. So Lady Gaga was the trailblazer for 2010's pop, and that's what makes her an A-list, okay? Everyone was looking at, what is Lady Gaga gonna do? Everything from her performances at the VMAs, the paparazzi performance, that super iconic, like everyone wanted to know, what is she gonna do? She was the forefront, the main chick. So definitely was the first A-list pop star I'm gonna name here. The second A-list pop star for 2010s is Rihanna. Okay, Rihanna, huge A-list pop star for the 2010s, had the most #1 hits. Now, if Gaga trailblazed everything, Rihanna set the trends. Rihanna was the most trendy. She was on trend with everything in terms of look, outfit, fashion, being theatrical, and having hit songs. She had the most hit songs for the 2010s pop girls. The most hit songs. She was the most trendiest, okay? And as time went down in the 2010s, like every single album had huge major hit albums, and her songs really represent the style of the music during the time in 2010s, which was again very pop, electro pop, even with the dubstep music, you know, that type of sound. Rihanna was the most on trend with the sound and the fashion and the look and the aesthetic of what a 2010s pop star is. So again, if Gaga was a trailblazer, Rihanna was the standard. And that's why she was the most consistent and had so many hits during the time. Really an A-list pop star for 2010s. Okay, third one we're gonna mention is Beyonce. Beyonce hit it huge. She's been huge, and she started during the 2000s. She's part of the 2000 eras with Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears. But as she headed on into the 2010s, she really became the excellent performer that everybody wanted to see. She set the standards for performance and took it to a whole different level. So with all the pop stars, even though she was really a classic act from the 2000s, she managed to hit the 2010s very well and was seen as the best performer, especially as we got into the mid 2010s to late. She was considered the best performer of the time, and everyone gravitated to her as that #1 person. So when you see with the A-list pop star tier, one thing you're gonna know is that they're gonna be the #1 at something. They're really going to be the #1 at something, whether it be the #1 as making trends, the #1 in terms of having the most album sales, or the #1 in terms of the best performer. And that's the position Beyonce played, was the best performer of that time. So everyone looked to her when it came to performance and execution. Okay, and then her album Lemonade, the visual album, and all the stuff she was doing, the Super Bowls, all these performances put her at the top and made her the standard, the best performer. So it made her an A-list pop star of a new generation. It made her A-list because everyone saw her as the best performer. The next artist for the A-list tier is Katy Perry. Now, Katy Perry had the most hits in one album. Teenage Dream, first of all, was a 3-year era. It lasted that long because of the amount of hits that were in that album. So many hits in that album. It was the top album of the 2010s. Teenage Dream had the most #1 hits. I think she actually rivaled with Michael Jackson in terms of having the most hits in an album. So that album was top tier. If you actually compare that album to any of the pop albums during 2010s, that was the best in terms of having the most hits. So she completely took over. And again, it's like, as to be a top tier, to be A, you have to be #1 at something. So that put her into the forefront, exactly with Rihanna, with Gaga, and all the people in the 2010s. Made her an A-list pop star. No matter about what you guys think about Katy Perry now, that's a whole different situation. We're focusing on 2010s. The next A-list is Adele. Now, Adele broke huge records with her album 1921. They sold so well. No one can actually beat her when she released an album. Really good record sales. I think one of the biggest record sales for an album. And Adele stood out because she wasn't into all the gimmicks. She was more of a ballad singer, vocalist. So it really stood her out. But her album sales for each album could not be rivaled by anybody else. And that's what put her into the A-list top tier. And she was in the forefront. She stood out so heavily. On top of having the best album sales, which automatically would make you A-list, she just stood out. She was the only person not really doing so much of the color and the gimmicks and all that type of stuff. She more so focused on the vocals, and it put her in her own kind of her own competition, put her in her own realm and her own type. And it stood her out. So again, Adele, no one can beat her album sales, her album record sales. You know, Teenage Dream could have been the best, like, top charting with the singles, but Adele's albums had the best sales out of anyone. No one can sell an album like Adele at that time. So definitely top 10. Definitely an A-list pop star. And last but not least, okay, I have Taylor Swift, of course. Now, Taylor Swift, huge pop stars for 2010s. And of course, she continued on to being even more successful as time went past. But another major record sales. Huge fan base. Okay, Taylor Swift's fan base was very huge. Also, she occupied a part in pop star, which was, more country pop. Which again set her apart from all the rest. By the time you got to 2015, Taylor Swift was the only person selling incredible amount of records and breaking records. So her fan base and her sales together made her an A-list pop star because nobody sold as much as her, had the loyalty fan base like her. Album sales, great. And great charting songs as well too. So she kind of actually had the whole package when it comes to sales, fan base, and singles that were charting. She kind of had the whole package and did very well. And that's why during the 2010s, especially 2015, she was the only person to really go, I think, like triple platinum or something like that with her album 1984. So she did incredibly well commercially. And her commercial success put her as an A-list pop star. So those were the A-list pop stars for females in the 2010s, okay? You had Gaga, Rihanna, Bee, Adele, and Taylor Swift. Now for the B-list, okay, for B-list pop stars, okay, these were also successful acts, but were more second thought to, if you were to name the top stars, they would be more of a second thought, even though they were successful. So Pink is a really good example, okay? Now, Pink actually started during the 2000s era, just like Bee. And she actually started with like Christina and Britney and everything, but she continued on to her career, and she made, she continued on into the 2010s. And the thing about Pink is Pink has a lot of iconic performances, but also Pink's tours sell out very well. And she had hit songs in the 2010s. So she still did very well. Very great selling tours. Her tours were actually some of the top tours, and people don't even know that, but her tours were actually some of the most top tours of the 2010s. This is what I mean, like, even if you're in the B list, you're still very successful. And she still had top 10 hits with her records. Still hitting good and still doing very well, still great performances, but still thought as a B-list pop star. She was still more into the side, because thing about Pink is Pink wasn't a trendsetter. She wasn't a trendsetter like a Rihanna, like a Gaga. So she wasn't in the forefront of the culture of 2010s pop. She did like the pop rock songs that gave her hit songs, but she didn't set trends. So it wasn't gonna put her, she wasn't gonna be put into that new, fresh forefront. Great performer, great performances, but for some reason wasn't seen as one of the best performers. Okay, she still hasn't had a Super Bowl performance, yet, which she should have. And she wasn't seen as the best performers. If you look at Gaga's performance and B's performance, their performances have made so much more cultural impact. Even though Pink had some really, really good performances, the cultural impact isn't there. So to me, Pink is an example of an artist who is successful, does have the record sales, is talented, but the reason why she's not in the A-list is because of her cultural influence, her cultural relevance. Is she a trendsetter? Is she a trailblazer? Is she setting trends for the generation? Is she culturally relevant? And that she wasn't. So that's why people wouldn't put her in, the top A-list, the A-list of pop stars of 2010s, even though she was still very successful. And I think she's a great example of that. Example of that is that you can still be a commercial success, but if you don't have the cultural relevance, the influence, that can make the difference between an A-list and a B-list. The next B-list for 2010s is Kesha. Now, Kesha had a lot of hits. Kesha actually had a lot of hits. However, she wasn't on the same level as the top A performances. One, because I feel like when it came to talent and performance, even though she had hits and was very recognizable, they just weren't on the level of Rihanna or Gaga or even Katy, because she wasn't taken so seriously as an artist in terms of her brand. She wasn't taken so seriously. She was kind of seen as, I'll listen to these main albums and these songs, and then I'll listen to Kesha. A lot of the Kesha fans were very, very young. I remember that at the time they were very, very young, and her brand wasn't taken so seriously. We already had the edgy Gaga. We already had the fashion trendsetter with Rihanna, so she just kind of was like another addition. Nothing too different and unique and appealing about her. She had like kind of like the edgy kind of trashy look with the glitter and stuff like that, but it didn't really set her aside. She wasn't doing like amazing fashion. She wasn't like a trendsetter or anything like that. And she wasn't taken too seriously like an artist. Now, this could affect you as an artist from being A to B, where you can have a lot of hit songs, okay? Like Kesha had a lot of hit songs in 2010, some of the most popular singles. But because people don't take you seriously, people take you very gimmicky. Not saying the other A-lists don't have gimmicks, but you're seen as the gimmick to all the gimmicks. That can put you in the B-list range. Because some people are going to say, yeah, Kesha's cool, but Gaga is the more edgier, serious artist. Yeah, Kesha's cool, but Rihanna is the more trendier artist, has the better fashion. Yeah, Kesha is cool, but Teenage Dream, Katy Perry, that album is a classic, versus Kesha. So Kesha, to me, what stopped her from being an A-list is that people didn't take her seriously as an artist. People took her more like a gimmick. We already got our main pop girls. This is just more of a gimmick. This is more of a side dish. And that can separate you from being an A-list, is not being taken too seriously, being taken more as the gimmick. The next artist would have to be for the B-list range for 2010 is Miley Cyrus, okay? Now, Miley Cyrus, very popular, had some hits, and was really making a statement. But again, the gimmicks. One, she came out from Disney. So people automatically associated her with the Disney package brand. So that, again, kind of made people not take her so seriously or just looking at her as a Disney now doing music type of artist, okay? So it kind of kept her with the young fan base, and it made people not take her as seriously as the other artists who don't have that Disney brand stamp on them. On top of that, Miley has been up and down with her brand. So she'll do one album like Bangers, which would be a whole moment. Even though it was taken as very gimmicky, Bangers wasn't taken so seriously because of the gimmicks that she put up on stage and all that type of stuff. Yes, the performance was popular, but not necessarily for the best reasons. So to me, Miley wasn't taken seriously as an artist. It was too gimmicky with the Disney brand, and then also the inconsistency. She doesn't have the same consistency with her momentum. So she had that amazing moment with Bangers, but then put out a weird country album after that did not get a lot of attention. And I think she did one album where she gave it out for free. You know, there was a lack of consistency in Miley on top of her having the Disney brand and not being taken seriously. So that puts her in the B range for 2010s. Okay, the next artist, Charli XCX. Okay, now some people might put her with A-list now because Charli XCX came out with Brat, so she's doing really well now. But during the 2010s, she definitely was a B-rated artist. And it's not that she was bad, but she didn't have as many hits. You know, she had some hits here and there. You know, her look and her brand wasn't really unusual. Some people compared her to Gaga. Some people even said she was the new Gaga during that time, which clearly wasn't the case. But the thing about Charli XCX is she had a very niche type of brand, a really specific kind of niche, hyper pop brand, and that could take you away from the A-list, because the A-list are supposed to be, you know, these kind of like household brands where everyone likes them. That's part of being A-list. You're so huge, everyone likes you. Being very niche, like a Charli XCX, where you have a very strong fan base, but it's a very specific one, takes you out of like that grand marketability and having a household name like a lot of the A-list pop stars do have. Everyone likes them, at least a couple songs from them. With Charli XCX, even though she had a great fan base and some hits, she still had a very niche fan base and only specific people liked her, and she wasn't commercially successful enough to be at the level with the A-list. So that puts her with the B-list pop stars. And last but not least, another example of a B-list from the 2010s would have to be Selena Gomez. Okay, now Selena Gomez had some successful hits, definitely, but they didn't have the talent to be taken seriously. Like, just the talent wasn't there as a performer, as a vocalist. On top of having the Disney brand with her, she could never be taken seriously like an A-list. It just doesn't seem like music is her full-time job. It just seems like something she does because she can also do it, and she can make money because she's popular and she's Justin's, you know, girlfriend. It seemed like a lot of things besides her actual music. No one really took her seriously as a real serious music artist. The talent, the performance wasn't there to back it up. It was more of the fame and the branding, you know. So again, that separates her from being an A-list to more of a B-list. You know, no one taking you as seriously. So yes, that is the A-list pop stars versus the B-list pop stars, looking at the differences. A-list, you have to be a household name. You have to be a trailblazer. You have to have a lot of commercial hits, okay? And you have to stand out on your own and represent the culture. With the B-list pop stars, what stopped them from being A-list is that they weren't trendsetters. They weren't necessarily trendsetters or trailblazers for the era. Some of their commercial hits weren't as consistent as enough, you know. And then on top of that, some of them were commercially successful, but were not taken seriously. Were taken more as gimmicks. Their talent wasn't taken seriously. So it's those issues that can separate an A-list from a B-list pop star. So tell me what you guys think about this topic. Tell me, who do you think were the A-list of 2010s and the B-list of 2010s? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to also check out my music, okay? I definitely would appreciate that. And I'll check you guys out on the next video.
take my throne.